Hey all, this is Chase with Ethical Trading. Had a few people ask about SPX and how I was looking at that, how I was making decisions on entry as well as exits and all those good things because we had several crazy trades on SPX this week. Full transparency, I'm going to show you those real quick. So, and for instance, this one today, quite a few, the last few days, I can actually jump over here and show you. That was a couple from today, like that 58.30 ended up going huge, but you can see the consistency. I mean, every single one that we jumped into today did at least 30% gains. Even that last one that was pretty risky, but it was overall cheaper than the rest. But you can see massive gain potential. I will be the first person to tell you, and you can tell it based off of the way that this kind of stuff is alerted, is that SPX is extremely high risk to trade, thus all these extra warnings and stuff on it. It's high risk, so ultimately if anybody is trading it, treat it like a lotto, right? But having said, doesn't mean it can't be extremely profitable. So with that being said, what are we looking at? I've got the SPX chart here from today, and I did roll it back. I haven't messed with the replay feature a ton, so we're going to kind of learn this together. But we opened today, right, with the big gap up, or we gapped and bounced and moved with the data this morning and kind of consolidate there. We opened, if I jump down, we opened, moved down, bounced, and moved up and consolidated, right? And everybody was kind of like, oh yeah, we look super bullish. And I wanted to maintain bullish mindset, but also was looking at several things on SPX that were showing a bit different. Also, the data wasn't looking all that fantastic yet. It came in as expected for the estimates, is basically what we saw in the data this morning. So a lot of us expected probably some covering and pumps after the massive drops we've seen on pretty much everything this week, right? Huge drops all across the board. But what I was looking for in the morning session, aside from that, was a break of this trend line. And it looks like I did delete the line after that move played out and we completed it. But basically, what I was watching is this. On this retracement bounce to the upside here and a potential reversal, what was going to occur. So looking at it here on the 5-minute, I don't really mess with the 1-minute a whole lot. You could if you wanted to look at a preface movement or something, but at any given point on the charts, there's typically bullish and bearish setups in play. So on this situation, we had a rising wedge that was starting to form. I was watching that for dissipation of buying pressure, but also for reversals. And something else I've started looking at is the gamma, because this is the gamma exposure or SPY, which you can see the rip into close, right? But this morning, the thing that we need to look at, I'll look at it on the 5-minute so it's a little bit bigger and easier to see too. So this morning, what were we doing? This morning we opened and we were consolidating and trading across this range right here at this 595 level, which you can see there's huge gamma exposure there. What does that mean? I've got it right here and I'll drop it in the thing so that y'all have it. But basically what that means is that as that gamma exposure is extremely high at that level, you basically have a situation where the market makers have to adjust their hedges and prices will fluctuate accordingly based off of that. Typically, once you're getting into a level like that, you can have it to where stronger selling pressure steps in order to negate the equity and shift off and cover the position accordingly, right? So I can word that better in the write-up I give y'all, but just want to kind of walk through it. But that's why I was watching this 595 level, and that's why you have actually over on the chart on SPY itself, and yes, I'm looking at SPY gamma exposure there, because SPY and QQQ exposure levels are actually very much in alignment. With that being said, I'll show you too how this also jives on SPY. SPX was the trade of choice today, but I want to show you again, the replay mode is pulled back right now, so we'll see how it kind of plays out. But even on SPY over here, you can see we had this kind of upward channel going on that turned into a rising wedge, and then I was looking for a potential reversal that occurred. But if we play this out a little bit longer, you can see right there that we actually broke down from this trend. And that wasn't just on SPX, it was also on SPY. So, downside move that we broke down from here. This line's actually for later in the day. You'll see here in a moment. But with that breakdown in the selling pressure that occurred when we came off of that level, watch this. It consolidates after that first big move, right? And everybody thought everything was done for the day because it was consolidating. Well, we bounced and pumped right back up into that zone on the gamma. And what happened was this. Once the selling occurred, the selling picked up hard. So let's see. And then we caught the bounce right around that level, I believe. Let's see. Yep, right in there, right off the support level. So previous low is what we tagged there, and then we got a big strong bounce, and then we all know we bounced pretty hard into the end of the day, right? So there was one more point where we kind of sold off after that. But then covering stepped in, and we had some massive rips as shorts closed long positions, and rip covering up, right, to cover that gamma exposure as well. So price action moved up because there wasn't a lot of gamma. If I look back over here, now look back where we've moved to the upside. Once we pushed above that range, there was positive gamma exposure in that range. So that's where you see that huge buying momentum step up. And if you notice, the selling stepped in again as we tagged this gamma level up here. So that's the same gamma level that we rejected off of earlier in the session. So important good stuff going on there. It's a great tool to lean on and leverage, but SPX can be really valuable for trading and making huge gains on setups like that if you're in and out. SPX is not one you want to sit in for a long period of time. Theta decay will completely and totally wreck the contracts. Some people will trade SPY or QQQ in correlation with SPX and other market movement, but ultimately there's not always a direct correlation between the contract premiums, especially once you get the Greeks involved. So just be careful if you try to take on that approach and mindset with it. But SPX, as you saw there, I mean, with that downside move, I was in those 58.30 puts off that rejection and then that break of trend. And yeah, it consolidated a bit there, but that's what I was watching for. Was it going to consolidate and push higher and maybe push up and tag this level? If that was the case, then maybe either exit with stop loss on those SPX options, or personally I write SPX options out. I'll enter a very, very small position sort of with the intent of ride or die on it, because the premiums can vary so greatly that if I go and look at the premiums for those 58.30s, they probably pulled back and decayed a bit and went negative 20, negative 30, maybe in negative 40% across that range because of decay and consolidation. But when they broke to the downside, you saw the gains that those things did, right? So jumping back over here just so we can see in that little movement range that was shown on SPX, those 58.30s went 361% gain. So they actually went 373, but I grabbed my screenshot right there at that point. So again, sticking with super small positions, typically I only trade one contract at a time. I just happen to be in three on that one. Similar situation as what occurred yesterday. I know me and several others, we locked gains early on SPX yesterday, but if I look back up here, I can show you the same similar type of scenario that played out on SPX. So right here, we rejected after the opening bell, right? And I know a lot of people locked their gains earlier on. Those things ended up moving. Where's our close? There we go. So a lot of us sold on the first move, then we ended up trading calls to the upside with the bounce, and then same thing to the downside. Trade them again. Most of us locked our gains there. Well, then the floor fell out yesterday into close, and you can see right here those SPX puts we were in yesterday that most of us locked gains earlier ended up going 1,678% gain. So while that contract was $330 at risk, it turned into $6,300. So again, SPX is one of those things that when things are extremely volatile, it can be great to trade if you know what you're doing and use the levels accordingly. But I guess just to kind of talk a little bit deeper about what was I looking at here for levels, I'm watching historical levels of support and resistance. There's a lot of them on this chart because we traded a lot of SPX the last week or so. So I need to go back here and remove a lot of these minor support and resistance levels so that the chart's not so busy when we're looking at it. But then also one thing that I can call out here for you is that yesterday, when capitulation kicked in and that thing dove really hard. I don't know if it's obvious here or not. And here, I'll keep deleting lines. We can always add them back later, right? But one thing, for one, that sell off yesterday, that was a trend line that broke as well right there. Similar with that intraday rising wedge pattern going on. And then when it broke, the gamma level was actually really high right here, and we saw heavy selling pressure come into play from that. So what I was looking at here, though, and what I was trying to show is that on the weekly chart, or I'm sorry, the 1 hour chart, there was actually a bear flag that had formed here. So I'm going to delete this because we're just watching the downtrend. I'll have to go back and see if I can pull some of the charts that show a bit more of what I was looking at here. 4 hours actually looking quite good here. 1 hour with that bounce, but be really careful about the movement on days like today, where it was OPEX was on the last day of the month on a Friday as well. You can get some really wacky, weird volume movement as options covering takes place, but then that doesn't necessarily correlate into the technicals next week. So you want to be very cautious about the upside pump today. Also keeping in mind that even after that huge bounce here, let me look at it on SPY so that it's not so busy. Even after that huge bounce today, SPY still not in like full-blown bull territory by any means, so you want to be cautious here. At the daily candle, that was great to see that momentum, but we're still inside bar daily. A lot of that movement came with things like Nvidia and others that are kind of treading on water at this point with holding support ranges. I'll post detailed breakdowns of each of the things either tonight or tomorrow with the TA and the levels to watch, but as you can see here, most things are catching a retracement bounce on the daily, which is much needed after as much drop as we had. But you want to be very cautious when you see those kinds of retracement bounces, because that can be just a retracement bounce to a support that has turned resistance. You can reject and move lower off that situation, which is what we're looking at right now. We don't have signs of confirmed reversals yet, but we'll be looking for it on a lot of big tech. Personally, I'm not swinging anything on big tech right now. I will scalp and trade stuff like SPX or intraday puts or calls like I did on Apple and Microsoft today. Those Microsoft puts went 227% gains, but I won't swing anything on Microsoft right now because of the risk that's going on right now with this larger time frame head and shoulders. That we caught that 389.17 key support level I've been watching, but we're not out of the woods yet, right? So as of right now, we're looking for a retrace movement back up to potentially test the neckline, but we'll have to see if it holds. So hopefully this was helpful, kind of walk through SPX. I'll try to do a cleaner video in the next week or two that explains some of the specific details a little bit better, because I know this is messy and chaotic, but today was messy and chaotic. It was an extremely volatile day with lots of rapid movement and wacky price action. So on that note, going to wrap this one up. Everyone have a great evening.